For decades, drivers around Chicago could do something that seems almost impossible today. They could pull off the tollway, walk into a restaurant, sit down for a meal, and look directly at traffic racing beneath their feet. These were the Illinois Tollway Oases. 5 of the original Oases opened in 1959, with restaurants built on bridges directly over the highway. By 1961, the restaurants known as Top of the Tollway had served 5.6 million people. For a generation, these places were more than rest stops. They were destinations. But some of the most famous Oasis buildings are now gone. So why did Illinois build restaurants over its highways in the first place? And what happened to them?
To understand why the Oases existed, you have to remember what northern Illinois looked like when the tollway system was being built in the late 1950s. Much of the land surrounding the new roads was still undeveloped. A family could travel for miles without finding a convenient place to buy gasoline, eat a meal, or simply take a break. The solution was ambitious. Standard Oil of Indiana agreed to build 5 oases along the new tollway system: Belvidere, Des Plaines, Hinsdale, Lake Forest, and O'Hare. Together, they cost about $13 million. But instead of building a separate restaurant for each direction of traffic, Illinois tried something much more unusual.
The main restaurant pavilion would sit on a bridge directly above the tollway. Drivers traveling in either direction could exit into separate parking areas, walk into the same building, and eat while cars and trucks passed underneath them. Architects Charles Ginther and Pace Associates recommended the over-the-road design because one shared restaurant would be cheaper to build and operate than 2 separate facilities. But efficiency was only part of the appeal. In the age of the new American highway, the view itself became an attraction. From inside the glass-walled dining room, families could watch a continuous stream of automobiles below. Something as ordinary as stopping for lunch suddenly felt futuristic.
The restaurants were originally operated by the Fred Harvey Company, a name that already had a long history serving American travelers. These were not designed as anonymous fast food stops. They had sit-down dining, gift shops, large windows, and an atmosphere that could make stopping on the highway feel like part of the trip itself. Some families dressed up before eating there. Children could press close to the glass and watch the traffic below while their parents finished dinner. The restaurants were marketed as Top o' the Tollway, and the idea quickly caught on. In 1961 alone, the restaurant served 5.6 million people. The Oasis was no longer simply a place to stop. For many families, stopping there became something to look forward to.
The original 5 Oases were only the beginning. In 1968, the Abraham Lincoln Oasis opened near South Holland. It had a different, more modern design, but it continued the idea of placing traveler services above the roadway. Then, in 1975, the DeKalb Oasis opened along the east-west tollway. DeKalb was the unusual one. Instead of placing the main building over the highway, it sat beside the road, with access arranged for traffic traveling in both directions. That brought the Illinois system to 7 oases. Each location was different, but the basic promise was the same: gasoline, food, restrooms, and a place to stop without leaving the tollway behind.
By the 1970s, however, the experience was beginning to change. The Tollway Authority had taken greater control of the facilities, and complaints had grown about service under the old restaurant operation. By 1975, Howard Johnson's had taken over the restaurants. For anyone who remembers the orange roofs along American highways, the pairing made sense. Howard Johnson's had built its reputation on serving traveling families, and now the company was operating restaurants in one of the most unusual roadside systems in the country. The service became more cafeteria style, fitting a generation of travelers who increasingly wanted something faster. At the Des Plaines Oasis, Howard Johnson's even became part of Chicago movie history when the location appeared in the Blues Brothers.
Howard Johnson's did not remain forever.
In 1984, the Oases shifted again as individual fast food chains moved in. McDonald's, Wendy's, and other familiar names reflected the way American road travel had changed. A stop that once meant sitting down for a meal increasingly meant getting food quickly and returning to the highway. In some locations, walls and restaurant fixtures even blocked portions of the large windows that had once made the traffic view such an important part of the experience. The Oasis still served a practical purpose, but something had changed. The buildings had originally made highway travel feel new and exciting. By the 1980s, speed and convenience were becoming more important than the novelty of dining above the road.
By the early 2000s, the original Oasis buildings were showing their age. The structures had already survived more than 4 decades of traffic, weather, remodeling, and changing restaurant operators. Between 2003 and 2005, most of the old over-the-road buildings were replaced with much larger modern pavilions. The new Oases returned the view of the highway to center stage. Tall steel structures and broad walls of glass allowed travelers to look out across the roadway again, while food courts replaced the old sit-down restaurant layout. For a moment, it seemed as if Illinois had found a way to preserve the Oasis idea for another generation. The buildings were modern again, the travelers were still coming, but the highways beneath them were changing too. The first major warning came at Des Plaines. The Oasis had opened in 1959 and survived through Fred Harvey, Howard Johnson's fast food, and a complete rebuilding. Then, in March 2014, it closed after 55 years. The reason was not that nobody used it anymore. The Jane Addams Memorial Tollway needed to be widened, and a major new highway connection was being planned near O'Hare Airport. The bridge building occupied space that the new transportation system needed. For more than half a century, the Oasis had existed because of the highway. Now the same highway was the reason it had to disappear. The Des Plaines Pavilion was demolished, and traffic eventually moved through the space where families had once eaten above the road. Des Plaines was not the last. In September 2018, the O'Hare Oasis Pavilion closed as Illinois prepared to widen the Tri-State Tollway. The building that had once seemed like a futuristic solution now stood directly where additional highway capacity was needed. 3 years later, the same thing happened at Hinsdale. Its over-the-road pavilion closed in September 2021 as part of the massive Central Tri-State Reconstruction Project. The side facilities for fuel could continue, but the familiar bridge building could not remain. 3 of the best-known over-the-road oases had now disappeared, and the reason was strikingly similar each time. The highway beneath them needed more room. But the Illinois Tollway Oases did not disappear completely. Today, 4 locations remain in operation: Belvidere, DeKalb, Lake Forest, and the Chicago Southland Lincoln Oasis. The bridge design can still be experienced at several of them, while DeKalb remains the unusual ground-level member of the system. And these are not forgotten buildings waiting to close. The company managing the current Oases says the 4 locations still serve more than 10 million visitors each year. That matters because it changes the story. The Oasis concept itself did not fail. People still stop for food, fuel, restrooms, and a break from the road. What disappeared were several individual buildings whose locations could no longer fit the highways growing beneath them. The story of the Illinois Oases is not really a story about Americans losing interest in road trips. It is a story about how the road itself changed. In 1959, putting one restaurant over the highway was an elegant solution. It saved land, served drivers traveling in both directions, and turned a rest stop into an attraction. Decades later, those same highways carried far more traffic and needed additional lanes, wider shoulders, and new connections. At the same time, the meaning of a roadside meal changed. Fred Harvey's sit-down dining gave way to Howard Johnson's cafeteria service,
and Howard Johnson's gave way to fast food. The Oasis survived, but the experience around it became faster, larger, and more practical.
There was something wonderfully strange about the old Illinois Tollway Oases. They were part restaurant, part rest stop, and part observation deck for the American highway age. For children riding in the back seat, stopping there could become one of the memories that defined the trip. You could eat lunch, look through the glass, and watch cars disappear beneath your feet. Some of those buildings are gone now, sacrificed to wider highways and new transportation projects. Others still carry the idea forward more than 6 decades after the first Oasis opened. If you grew up around Chicago or traveled the Illinois Tollway, which Oasis do you remember? And do you remember eating at Fred Harvey, Howard Johnson's, or one of the restaurants that came later?